I'm just, what they're doing is absolutely phenomenal. It's just sad that the ending is probably not going to be good, and based on the way they speak, they're not going anywhere. At least they're not going anywhere alive from the way they speak of it.
No,
and,
they're not.
That's what had to happen. That's really what needs to happen. And it's really sad that the press. Well, that's not, it's nothing surprising, of course.
Right.
Press, but unfortunately, it's what they're doing is just so brave. They have the money. They've said outright, as you point out. This is not about them being greedy. They're standing up for their rights. And
right.
I've tried to talk to people about this, and everyone is just in such fear of the IRS. The IRS is absolutely fraudulent. It's the only real organization in the country that's outright. You are outright guilty until proven innocent.
Exactly.
And that's completely wrong.
It is wrong.
It's atrocious.
It is wrong, and what it is it turns us into a system of basically puppets, because we're going along with this. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't pay my taxes, and I'm not going to say that my family doesn't pay ours. I pay them, and for the simple fact that I don't want to go to jail. I don't, and I'm going to sit here and admit to you that I don't have the guts that Ed and Elaine Brown do. I just personally don't. They have more guts than 90% of the people in this country have for doing what they're doing, and they're standing up for what's right. And I think that should be commended. It should be blessed. But of course, the mainstream media does their little job as puppets, demonizing these people, saying that that they're a bunch of killers who are going to kill anything that steps on their property, and nonstop just garbage. And I think it's important, like you said, to spread the word to people about what's really going on there. That house, not compound.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's a family. It's not a family that knows their rights. And the funny thing is the ignorance is so widespread. I think even the puppets in the mainstream media, if they really understood that they don't have to pay income taxes, if they really understood that there's no law, that in the actual IRS code, it says it's voluntary.
Right.
Apart from the fact of all the other fraudulent aspects of it in its culmination,
exactly.
They would be on the side of it. Because who wants to pay in 35 to 40% of their income every year to go into the pockets of the bankers for the interest on the fraudulent Federal Reserve?
Exactly. You have.
It's absolutely.
And what absolutely stuns me about this, Peter, is that you have so many Republicans and so many of these quote conservatives who don't like taxes to begin with, who want as little tax as possible, but they still think that these people are nuts. I mean, they say, well, we don't want taxes. I mean, taxes are for, that creates a socialist society. Well, show me the law that says that you have to give the government your money. You're giving your government like 30 to 40%, like you said, of your money, and you're not. And where's it going? It's going into the pocket of a private banker. They slap a label on it. For anybody who's seen the film American Freedom to Fascism, they know this. I mean, it goes right into the pocket of a banker. They slap labels on it. They say, well, this money, how would our highways get paid for? How would our schools get paid for? What they don't realize is that property taxes go to pay for education. Highways are not federal owned; they're state owned. So they're all gas taxes go to pay for these roads. It's local and city, local government and state taxes that go to help pay for these things. And what they want to do, they paint it with a broad brush and say, well, all of your income tax goes to pay for all this federal stuff. These court buildings and all these nice. No, half of these court buildings were built even before the Federal Reserve was created. I mean, prime example today. Who was it? The guy from Fox News was interviewing. I think it might have been yesterday. Was interviewing Ron Paul, and he asked. I think Neil Cavuto. He says to him, well, if somebody didn't have to pay taxes. Or if people didn't have to pay taxes, then you wouldn't be standing in that nice building that you're standing in right now. And Ron Paul was standing in some government courtroom. And Ron's like, yeah, okay. How do you think the building of this building here was funded? It was built way back before the creation of the Federal Reserve. How do you think it was funded? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Ron Paul, I saw the interview you're speaking of, and he's another one that we really have to commend. This guy, he's unbelievable. I can't believe we even have a candidate that's willing to be this honest. He's absolutely honest, and he knows the frauds. He knows all about them. We have to get behind Ron Paul.
Right.
I understand he was banned from the next debate, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I just read an article before I came on the air. I didn't get a chance to print it, but apparently Ron Paul is starting up a... they're calling it, he's going to crash the debate. He's going to set up his own room in the same building and do his own. I think that's great. I mean, we're in real trouble. And, to sum it up here, I mean, so many people want to focus just on 9/11. I mean, I've got articles here about the immigration bill, which I think is a complete joke. I want to get into that with you. What is your take on this immigration bill?
Well, I'm probably not as familiar with it as you are, but I've been listening to it for a long time. It sounds like an amnesty plan to me, but didn't you shoot down the bill?
Yeah, they shot it down today. There was no vote, or there was a vote on it. They shot it down. The senators voted unanimously not to pass it, and so it's done for now. Ted Kennedy says, "Well, I vow it's going to be back." But the bottom line here is, Peter, is that this thing, if it's signed, it's basically signing our country over to a North American Union. We're basically all screwed. Our Constitution is burned at that point. It's over. It's completely over, Peter. Our Constitution is gone. Canada, Mexico, and the United States will become one, and you're headed in a huge, giant step towards a globalization.
Right, precisely. That's exactly the point I make in my piece, and I'm 100% behind you. Anybody that's aware of the general politics of the Council on Foreign Relations, the fact that they outright want a one-world government, have been saying this for about 60 years, and then you realize that all the major cabinets of all the major administrations are full of these guys. And top-tier guys, too. Of course, it's compartmentalized. Not everybody in the Council of Foreign Relations, knows the game plan.
Right.
Thousands of them in there.
Just like the CIA, just like the CIA, the FBI, or not every single individual is not involved in 9/11. Certain black ops that are involved in it, not every single one. But go ahead, finish your point. I'm sorry.
But the precedent for a one-world government and the merger of economies, as you probably know, I believe it was Foreign Affairs came out fairly recently saying they wanted to merge the dollar with the euro with the yen, which is one step towards the global currency, because those are three major currencies.
Yeah, and
of course the Amero is going to happen before that.
Right.
So you just have to read between the lines on this, and then the precedent for one world government goes back so far. I mean, it's very old.
Oh, it is.
Hey, I'm sure. Are you familiar with Norman Dodd?
Yes, I've heard of him. Yes.
Norman Dodd. He was appointed to head the first and only commission to look into tax-free foundations in the 1950s.
Right.
And of course, tax-free foundations are where all the rich elitists hide their money, and they engage in the influence of society through the use of these tax-free foundations, such as I'm sure you heard Aaron Russo describe the Rockefeller foundations, and Nick Rockefeller describing the women's liberation movement, how they used that to their advantage by funding it, in Nick Rockefeller's logic, so that they could get the other half of the country to pay taxes and get the kids in the institutionalized schools faster. So you look at it, it's this incredible deviousness. The tax-free foundations have incredible influence, and it looks like what they're doing is very positive and altruistic and for humanity. It's not the case at all. So anyway, Norman Dodd, 1950, started investigating these organizations, and he was called up to an office with I can't remember who the figure was, but a very high figure in one of these major foundations. And the man explained to him, and this was 1950, that the goal of their foundation, I'm trying to paraphrase his words, because he says it almost exactly in the interview with Norman Dodd, and it's also that's in books, but essentially that they're using their tax-free foundations to merge the United States with the Soviet Union.
Yep.
And this is a very, this just shows how old and how long they've been trying to do this. And it's incredible realization to think that people are really trying to do this. That they're without country. The bankers and the elitists are without country. They don't need any of this. They don't need the United States. People think the United States is the one engaging in the really criminal country. It's not the United States. It's the people, the bankers that own it, the coup d'etat of 1913, and it's these guys that are pushing forward and trying to fulfill their agenda any way they can.
Yeah,
and they're extremely patient.
All right. Well, Peter, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because we're almost to the end of the show. But your website right now, as of right now, is zeitgeistmovie.com, and
that's correct.
People can contact you through the website. Any plans of releasing this on a DVD, or maybe opening up maybe a more broad of a website, or what are your future plans from here?
Well, I'm going to produce a DVD for it that I'm basically going to give away. And I'm encouraging people to take it and to duplicate it and just get it out there. Numerous offers for people to translate in different languages. Apart from that, I would definitely like to get this thing in film festivals, and that's something. Really try to hit the mainstream somehow.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I would like to start expanding the different sections. We don't need another major big 9/11 documentary, but I'm very interested in the religion section, and most importantly, actually, the third part. I want to maybe expand this, this broad structure, this broad scheme, into a larger, more detailed work. But that's just kind of rattling around in my brain right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to do that right now. I have a normal day job and everything. So that's my hope, to eventually expand this. But I'm just hoping to get this out to as many people as possible, and
Yeah, exactly. That's what we need is change, and the time is now. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us on the program, and I'd love to have you on sometime in the future just to talk about your progress and what you've done with the film. The film is Zeitgeist.
Absolutely.
The film is Zeitgeist, and Peter, thanks again for joining us. You have yourself a great night.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you